So I have chapter 3 data structure, and there are 3 files there. The Word document has short summary of the topics we're going to cover. So go ahead and download this shell file, which is what we'll be using to do our class work. And then the third file, the PDF file, has the completed code, the notebook file. Okay. And one more thing I want to draw your attention to, and that is the quiz. Okay. And I have a little summary sheet before you start the test. Download, take a look at that one. Again, it has just bullet points. Okay, so make sure that you're familiar with those bullet points before you start the test. So that way you'll be able to, you'll be prepared to do well in the quiz. Okay? Okay, chapter 3 is data structures and sequences. Here is where we look at the different kinds of data structure that's available in Python for us to use. Okay. Now, after this, we'll be looking at some libraries that do a better or that make things easy for us, which we will come to later. But right now, the data structures we're going to see, they are all part of the base Python. Okay. Sometimes that's what would be very efficient to use. Sometimes it may be the library functions, the library data structures that we'll be seeing later on will be more efficient. Okay. But we have to start from the Python data structures. Okay. And there are what are called tuples, list, dictionary, set, and maybe a few more. These are the 4 and maybe a couple of more. Okay. And all of these are multiple element data structure, as opposed to the scalar types that we saw in the previous chapter. The previous chapter we looked at like a string element or integer, floating point, and so on. So those are all scalar, meaning one value. A variable will have just one value in it. Data structure we're going to see in this chapter, they will contain several values. Okay. One value, comma, another one, comma, another one, comma, another one, and so on. Okay. So tuple is the first one. Okay, and these are the characteristics of tuple. It's a fixed length, immutable sequence. So that means once you define a tuple, then you cannot make it larger or smaller. Okay. You cannot change an element that is inside it, but there is an exception for that. Okay, and we will look at that exception in just a second. Okay. Fixed length, immutable, each object is separated by a comma. So each element here need not be a scalar. It can be a scalar, or it can be another list or another data structure. Okay. Now the entire sequence may be enclosed by left and right parentheses. If you don't enclose left and right parentheses, okay, Python will automatically assume that this is a tuple. This is not some other data structure, but it's a tuple data structure. Okay. And then if you have some other data structure that you want to convert to a tuple, then there is a function called tuple. We will use that function. All right. So let's start looking at some examples. Okay, so if you say like say I want to say T1 equal to 4, 5, 6. Now I have not included the left and the right parenthesis here, okay, but that would be automatic. Now if I say print T1, right? Now the left and the right parentheses are now added. It's Python does that. Or I could say T2 equal to 6, 7, 8, and I put the parenthesis myself, okay, which is good too. Well, now if I do T2, then it will print 6, 7, 8 for us. Okay, for more complicated expressions, it's often necessary to enclose with parentheses. Okay. So if you instead of just 6, 7, 8, suppose we have 1, 2, and then another tuple inside it. And then a string. Okay. So this is a little more complicated value. Again, this is a tuple, and it is there is a nested tuple in it. Okay, so there is the 0, 1, 2. The index 2 element in the tuple is another tuple. Okay. Now, if you have a list, okay, list is usually with a square bracket, right? So suppose if you have a list like this, okay, and you want to convert that list into a tuple, okay, then say we T4 to convert a non-tuple object to a tuple. Okay. See? So now T4 is a tuple, even though we the original elements is a list, but the list has been converted into a tuple. Well, I should have entered that here. Okay. Now, if you okay, so to the tuple function, if you give a string as the argument, then what the tuple function will do is it will pop each letter or each character from the string and make that into an element. It will create a tuple consisting of individual characters of the string. Sometimes that would be very useful. See now, A has become one element, and then a blank is the second element, S is the third element, and so on.